Hello, hello. Welcome to the live stream. I'm just going to make sure I am here. We are here. So I'm super, super excited to dive in today and spend a little time chatting about the one thing that will consistently move the needle in your business. If you are coming on live, say hello. Let me know that you are here. And if you're watching this on the replay, great, welcome. Also, let me know that you are here. So hello, Amber. I've just got you guys up here so I can read comments. So if I'm looking down, I am just checking in on all of you. So I'm super excited today because one of the things that I have a consistent conversation with my clients, regardless of whether they're just starting their businesses or even if they're in six figures, moving into multi-six figures, is that a lot of times there's confusion about what we're actually supposed to be doing in order to get to that next level. And, over the course of my business, which I started in 2017, this has been the one thing that has gotten me where I am today, like above all else, really. Hello, Lauren. So happy that you are here. And so I think it's really important when we are considering how we're supposed to get where we want to go and how we're going to create what we desire to create for ourselves, for our businesses, for our clients, in our lives, that we always stay focused and keep our eyes locked in to this one thing. Hello, Tracy. Full transparency, I was just eating like a Kind bar really quick, like right before I jumped in. I feel like, oh, I think I got it. There was like something weird happening with like a piece of granola stuck in a tooth or a gum or something that was really bothering me. But I think we got it all together now. And now I can focus. So what's the one thing that's always going to move the needle? And I know some of you are going to be real fucking annoyed with this answer because on the surface, it seems really simple, but we've got some time today. So I want to like really dive in deep to exactly what I mean by it. And at the end of the day, what it is action. And if we could break it up almost into two pieces, like the same thing, but also like maybe bring a little duality to the conversation, would be action and decision. People who you see who have any kind of success in anything in the world got there because they made decisions and then they took action. Right. And so I think the decision is kind of like the precursor to the action, really, because you have to decide before you take the action. But really, at the end of the day, beyond anything else, taking some sort of messy action, any action at all, is always going to move you further than taking no action. Because even if you make the wrong choice, even if it doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to, you now have extra data points which you can utilize and learn from to help you make your next decision and take your next action. And I think sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in the big picture of where we're going. We want the 10K, the 20K, the 50K, the 100K months, right? And to be trying to think on like really big picture when what would serve us the most is being right here and asking, what's the one step I can take right now? What's the next thing in the pipeline that's coming at me? Can I show up and like say something? Can I do something somewhere? Is there a decision that needs to be made? But staying stuck and doing nothing is where I see a lot of people go wrong. Or, taking a couple steps of action, not getting the result they desire, and then retreating back into inaction, coming balls to the wall, it not working out the way you wanted it to, whether that's, and this is a consistent pattern I see in so many of my clients, is that they make the decision, they create the program, they go out, they do the launch, 7 to 10 days go by, they don't have any sales. And so they decide, shut it down. I'm done. This clearly isn't working. And then they either just like keep repeating that pattern, or they decide not to sell the things anymore. And then it's like another 1, 2, 3, 6, 12 months before they decide that they're going to go out and try again. And they just do the same thing. But the laws of physics tell us that like an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest. And so there is something to the energetics of getting like your business in motion. That does not mean that y'all have to be in motion all the time, that you always have to be doing something, that you always have to be selling or launching something, that you always have to be like active and attentive and like in your business. Doesn't mean that at all, but we want the energetics of the business to always be in motion. We want the energetics of the business to always be moving. And that means that you have to energetically be in your business, doing things and making the decisions. And so there's a lot of different ways this plays out. The launch is just like one example of how people come in and out of their business and how they pull out energetically and sometimes actually physically, right? By shutting the launches down. And this is actually like really detrimental to a lot of people's process, because if you're constantly shutting your launches down because they're not getting the traction that you want in the first couple of days or weeks, you're doing a disservice to yourself ultimately, because you're not committing to that process. You're hoeing out on yourself and on your future clients. And so when I say that I'm doing a launch for something, it is rare to never that I don't hold out the launch to the very end, even if nobody has signed up. If I said I was going to be in launch for 2 weeks, I'm going to be in launch for 2 weeks, even if no one signs up. And like on that last day, when cart is closing, I'm going to be committed to continuing to show up for that, because stepping out of it and moving into inaction is actually the fastest way to slow or kill my momentum. Because by continuing to talk about something, even if it's not actually selling, it keeps the ball in play. And so there's still opportunity. There's still things to learn. So this is a time when instead of stopping and saying, I'm not doing this anymore, you get to start saying, well, why might this not be working? What can I learn here? How have I or have I not been showing up here? What is my mindset and my energetics like here? What points have I talked about? What points have I not talked about? And if you end up closing cart and you know that you played full out, there is still an accomplishment and something worth celebrating, because you stayed committed to your own word and to your own process. And so that in and of itself is something to be celebrated. But if you're constantly like hoeing out on yourself and like shutting things down, you're actually not giving yourself the chance to see what would have happened if you had played that all the way to the end. What would have happened if, if you were selling a one-on-one spot, and after a month of talking about your one-on-ones, people hadn't bought? What if instead of then pivoting into something else, you had decided that you were just going to keep talking about it until somebody bought it, and that the cart wasn't closed until the spot was taken? But when you say, oh, that didn't work, then you start telling that story with yourself that your business isn't working, that people aren't buying, when a lot of times you're just cutting it off too short, when people need to see it a little bit more, particularly if you are newer and you don't have an established audience, an established buying pool of hot and warm leads. If you're needing to do that process for them, or if you've done things like sometimes what I do, I'll take a hard pivot in my business and I'll drop a program that is unlike any of the other things that I've been doing or talking about. And my audience is kind of like, whoa, where did this come from? You need more time in those situations to get people on board, to show people what you're about, to tell people what you're doing, to show them why it's important to them, why it matters, why they would want to invest in it and spend money on it. And it's going to take time. And if you're not giving your audience time to warm up to it, if you're not doing it, then, if you're not going full out on it, then you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing your audience a disservice. And I see someone here is asking, like, how do you know if it's not working because it's unaligned? Well, you can always check in on yourself with that. And like, what would make it aligned? Is it a small tweak to something? Is there something that could be easily changed that doesn't require you to shut it all down? And I am just a firm believer that like, I deeply, deeply trust myself that like, if I do the work to make sure something feels aligned before I go in. And so if I'm launching something, if I'm offering something to my people, like I've already taken the time to do the work around alignment. And so that's just not something that I really question myself on after the fact, right? In that place, like there could be a million other reasons why alignment is not one of them. And so you can kind of come out ahead of that and part of this has been the process of like slowing down my launch process, not just like having an idea and then rushing to launch it or announce it like the next day or even that week. That from the time I have an idea to the time it actually gets out to being an open cart for my people, there's at least 2 to 4 weeks in there where I have time to feel into the alignment, to feel into my energy and how I want to show up. And there's a huge difference between your energy dipping because you're not getting the result that you thought you were going to get or the result that you desire, and your energy not being in it because you're unaligned. And usually people want to say that it's a misalignment when really what it is that it's just an energetic shift because people aren't buying and now you're creating stories and disappointments. But instead, it's kind of easier to say, well, this just doesn't feel in alignment anymore. And that's oftentimes more than not a cop-out, I have found. And so I would challenge you to just really press yourself on that. And if you have a slower process of idea to open cart, if you slow that down and give yourself a lot of spaciousness in there, if I keep a bank of ideas, and most of the time we're pulling new course ideas out of a bank. They're not kind of like dropping in and then getting launched in that live, in like a real time. Like last year, if you guys know my program, Inevitable, it was a suite of 6 programs. And all of those 6 programs were ideas I had the year before in 2020. And none of them started coming until the latter half of 2021. So I had sat with them for 6 months to decide if those were things I wanted to do, if those were subjects I wanted to teach about and talk about, and if that felt in alignment for me. And so really slowing down the process and starting to think more as the CEO with a big vision of where you're going and what you're doing, as opposed to the solopreneur who's like, oh, I had an idea, I'm going to go and sell that now, right? When you can start to pull back the perspective and be in that CEO mindset, alignment becomes much less of an issue because nothing's getting actually produced and sold that is fully out of alignment, because you're having that process to sit with it, be with it, play with it, be in the energy, create it, make it what you want. And so really my recommendation there is like slowing down the process. And even if something you decided was out of alignment, like I think that there are ways that you can intelligently and creatively shift it into something that is in alignment without just shutting it down and being like, oh, that was out of alignment, so I'm not doing it anymore. And for me, that's been like more of a process. Like when Human Design, the huge bulk of my business in 2020, when I hit my first 6 figures, was in Human Design. And in 2021, when I tripled my business, almost none of it was from Human Design. There was a very small amount of it that was from Human Design, less than, I would say, probably maybe 1/5 of it was from Human Design related things, but maybe not even that, to be honest with you. And so when I decided that human design was no longer in alignment for me to be teaching full time, and that there were other things that were calling to me and kind of pulling me, I didn't just like shut down my entire human design business. I didn't just shut down the launch that I was in the middle of. That was a decision I made as a CEO to move the company in a different direction. But I finished out all of my commitments, including the commitments to myself, that there were maybe things in the pipeline that were human design related that still needed to get done, right? Like I'm still in the process of recording and doing my human design certification on an evergreen self-study basis. And that, like I said, I decided last year at the beginning of the year that was not the direction I wanted to keep my business going in, but that was something that I was really committed to doing, was creating that in an evergreen self-study way. So I still show up for that because that's my commitment. And so I don't think it has to be like, oh, it's not aligned, so like shut it down, get rid of all of it. I think that there's ways that you can hold your commitments to yourself and to your people, and you can just kind of shift the energy around things. But the action is where so much happens. And I think that there's a million places in our business where we are stuck in inaction and not doing things, like deciding like, I don't know what the next program should be, or I don't, at the very beginning, right? I don't know what my niche should be, like any of these kinds of things. And at the end of the day, like, as long as you continue to not know, then you don't have to do anything. So lack of clarity and confusion is a really cute game that our brain plays on us, trying to convince us that we don't know. And because when we don't know, we don't have to do anything about it. And so we'll just stay in this like liminal space of confusion of like, well, I don't know what I should be coaching people on. I don't know what my area of expertise is. I don't know what I really want my business to be about. And so from there, we fake confusion, because once we decide, we would actually have to go and do the thing and like build the business and make the offers. And so watch out for where you're feeling like you have confusion or lack of clarity on things, and ask yourself, like, is it absolutely true that I do not know? Or is it that me not knowing is keeping me safe and out of action? And in some cases, like the answer to figuring out what you don't know is to simply decide, like pick something. I don't care if you like throw a dart at a map, like just choose something and go and start taking action on that. Because a lot of times it's hard for us to figure out what's in or out of alignment for us, or what we love or don't love, until we're in the process of doing it. I went to beauty school because when I was 16, I got my first job at a hair salon, sweeping hair. It seemed like a way better job than working at any of the other places. My friends were getting job like in food service and like at Chicken Shack, where like they all had to wear these really gross color maroon shirt, like uniforms, like golf shirts, and they smelled like deep fry oil when they got off of work. And like nothing about that seemed appealing to me. I had no interest in making chicken as a 16-year-old. And so I was like, well, what about the salon? That's probably a really great job. And so I went and I applied for a job, and I was there and I loved it. And I loved the women, and I loved the environment, and I loved the vibes. It was like a very high-end salon, and the hairstylist drove Porsches and Corvettes and Lexuses. And I was like, I want to live this life. And so I decided to go to beauty school, and I went to beauty school, and it was time for like me to graduate and like get a job and or like move and like get a chair and everything. And I was like, you know what? I fucking hate doing hair. I hated doing hair. I loved the environment of the salon, but I didn't like actually doing hair. But like, I didn't know that until I was doing it. And I had to give myself permission to like, I finished hair school. I did all of the things, but then I was like, okay, now it's time for me to shift. But like, I would have never known if I hadn't just tried something. I could have sat around my whole life being like, what do I want to do with my life? But like something sparked a little interest. And so like I went all in, and then I decided it wasn't for me. And so then I changed my mind and I did other things until I finally found the thing that I wanted to do. And even within my own business, right? I kind of started in one place and I ended today. I'm not ended, but like today I'm in a very different place. And some of you have been around a lot of the different iterations of my business and my niching and the things, because like I just do the things and I just keep showing up and seeing what that's like and seeing what I like and what I don't like, and giving yourself the permission to just choose and take action on something and not necessarily like wait until you think you have crystal clear clarity on it, or like something drops in a meditation or like whatever. Like sometimes even just like playing with the idea of something, even just saying like, you know, okay, so I'm going to do this thing. And then maybe even just the deciding that you're going to do that thing gives you enough of like something to respond to in order for you to say like, actually, no, that's not the thing, right? Kind of like sometimes I outsource my decision-making to other people. When I can't make a decision, I'm like, you just decide for me. And then they decide. And then I can feel into like whether or not that feels good, right? Like I had last year, I had like an ex of mine who like we do not have, there's still a lot of like invisible strings there, like messaged me and you know, and was like, hey, like, how have you been? And I kind of like started to have a panic attack because I'm like, why is he back after like 3 years? Why is he showing up? Like, what's going on? Like, this is torturous for me. Like, do I respond to this? Do I not respond to this? I've spent 3 years trying to get over him. And like, now he's back in my inbox. Like, what do I do? And I went to a friend and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm totally freaking out here. And she was like, don't do it. Like, you are playing with fire here. Nothing has changed. The reasons why you guys broke up are the reasons why you guys broke up, which was nothing bad. We literally just want different things for our lives and for our futures. And so she was like, you still want the same future. Like, it's undoubted, you know, it's like unlikely that he's changed what he desires and that like he's changed his core values and is like back for you. So it's like probably a bad idea. And when she said that, I was like, no, that's a terrible idea. I absolutely want to figure out what the hell he wants. Right. And so like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do or what felt like the right thing for me until she offered something up to me. And then I was like, oh no, that's not what I want. And so sometimes even inviting other people to just like make the decisions for us allows us to have more data in order to make the decisions. And you'll notice that theme that sometimes it's just about like, if I make decisions, and I take action, then think of it like less as I have to stick with everything I do, but that like I get to gather more data in order to figure out what is right for me and to get where I'm going, because you can sit in the indecision and in the inaction forever, never knowing, never having enough clarity or certainty, never knowing what the exact right next step is. And so you take no steps. And sometimes you just have to move so you can get in that motion. And once you start doing things, you can start doing other things. I see this show up a lot of times in the way that people invest too, right? I really want to work with that person one day. I really want to be that person's one-on-one client, but like they're not investing in anything in themselves in any way because they can't be that person's one-on-one client, or because they can't join that mastermind or that program or whatever. And to which I say, like, you can always take action. Like, I know people who, you know, I recently reached out to a coach that I am already working with in a mastermind. And I was like, hey, I am dedicated to being one of your one-on-one, like high-end $100,000 clients this year. Like, that is a commitment I want to make. And I want to make it to you right now. I am not quite ready to like throw down my 100K today. There's still some work I'm doing around this, right? There's still some things that like I'm making happen, and some like old financial commitments I'm wrapping up like before I step in. But I'm so fully committed to this that instead of just saying it to myself in my brain, or even to you that I want to do this, I'm going to start giving you money right now at a minimum of a monthly basis until that day comes. Like, consider it a layaway. or whatever you want to think about. But like, I'm so committed to stepping into this that like, here's some money you can take today. Like, I'm literally putting down a down payment on me doing this. And so I put that into motion and I put that action in and that accountability for me, instead of just saying forever and a day that I want to be one of her $100,000 one-on-one clients. Like, I put my money where my mouth was, even though it wasn't quite the $100,000. I literally started putting that plan into action, and now it's rolling. And now we ended up coming up with an entire agreement and setup around what I was going to be paying, how often, how much, and all these things, and how the process was going to work into me eventually stepping into one of those steps at some point this year. Right. And you can do this. You can ask for what you want. I've had people ask for layaway options like that. I know coaches that do like profit sharing with people who can't afford their full prices for things. And that's something you can like always go in and ask for. If you can't invest in someone's higher end tiers, invest in their programs and like get in their energy. If you can't invest really much of anything at all, if you can't even get into like a group program, like make things like these lives or reading people's content and emails and paying attention, like treat that as if it is a paid program. I want to do like a case study on someone who shows up for free content in all of the ways as if it is paid, and like maybe actually even pays for it. Like, if you are going to treat somebody's free content as if it's a paid program, and you're going to be committed to showing up for things like free lives, and you're going to binge their podcast, and you're actually going to like do the homework. And when they post journal questions in their Instagram, posts on a carousel, like you're going to take the journal prompts and you're going to go and you're going to do them and you actually apply it. And like, what would happen energetically if you did that? And then like, you also DM'd them and said, like, your content is valuable to me. Like, how can I pay you? And like, even if it was like $5 a week. So like you bought them like a weekly Starbucks or something, or $10 a month, even if that's all you could afford was $10 a month, like what the energetics of that says is that like, I'm here, this is serious, and I value you, and I value the growth and the commitment that I'm making to showing up for this. Like, how would those energetics change the way that you consume content and the way you grow and learn and expand from it? And it's not about like, at the end of the day, like nobody's really caring if you're giving them $10 a month because you love their content, even though like it's more about like the beauty of the value in the exchange and like what that means, and your action of saying like, I maybe can't afford the program, but I am going to start paying you because you're my mentor and you're my person. Maybe I can't get into even like the $100 a month program, but I can give you $10 a month because I'm learning from you. Or maybe I can't get into the $100,000 a year program, but I can start paying you now towards that program because I'm committed to being a part of it. Right. And so there's, again, like it's about making the decision and then taking the action, following the decisions with the actions. And more often than not, the decisions don't actually matter, right? It doesn't matter what day you do something on the calendar. It doesn't matter what time something is, like, just pick it. It really doesn't even matter like what you write in your content or like what you come here and talk about. Like, there were a million things I could have come here and talked to you about today. Like, I just picked one and then I went with it, and I started in one place, and like, God only knows if I'll end up at the end. Like, are we still on track? Are we still really focused on the same thing? Have I deviated? I don't know. I don't care. Because I trust fully that like my process is my process, that like the spirit is leading here. The spirit is always leading. And so like, I just start doing things. I just start showing up. I just start writing. I just start talking. I just initiate the conversation and make the ask. I just start paying something somewhere to someone, right? I just start, and then I trust that like the next right step is always going to show up. The next thing that needs to be said that is true for this moment right now and for every single person on this live stream who's here now or in the future and needs to be hearing this message, like those words are going to come through. As I write, I just start somewhere, and then I trust that like ultimately like the point and the lesson is going to show up and come through. I start putting money into a layaway account with my coach, knowing that like that $100,000 now has to come through because like I fully energetically committed to it. And so now it has no choice but to, right? My success has to come. My success has no choice but to show up and is fully inevitable because I keep showing up for it. I keep on creating. I keep on speaking. I keep on sharing. I keep on offering ways for people to pay me. And for the longest time in my business, from, I don't know, like 2017, when I started my business to, I don't know, like April 2020, for 2.5 years almost, it felt like none of that action was really adding up anywhere, but it did, which is what gave me the false illusion of like an overnight success to a lot of people, because all of a sudden I went from like, who is she, to like having a 6-figure business in 6 months. But like that didn't happen overnight. There were 2.5 years of consistent overnights that happened before everything all of a sudden clicked. And I was like, I went from 3K month, I had a 3K month, then a 6K month, then a 10K month, and then like never dipped below 10 again. Quickly moved up into 20, and like even in 2021 was hitting 30K months at certain points. And so like it all seemed like it happened really quickly and out of nowhere, but it was really the result of consistent decision and action, decision and action, decision and action. Like lather, rinse, repeat. And I didn't always know what I was doing. I didn't always have crystal clear clarity. I wasn't always sure of myself, but I decided that it was safe to trust myself and that I could pivot and move and shift and adjust at any point, and that I would know what those points were. And then like, I wouldn't give up just because the sales weren't coming through, just because the clients weren't showing up, didn't mean that my business wasn't working, didn't mean I wasn't meant to do this, didn't mean that I was out of alignment or doing something wrong. It just meant that like, I hadn't really like figured it all out yet, which is totally okay. I still don't have everything figured out. I'm literally, seriously, still just winging it, doing the exact same things I was doing 3 years ago. My business really, at the end of the day, on the inside, doesn't look a whole lot different than it did when I was making $0 a month, than it does now when like I closed out 2021 at just shy of $300,000 in cash for the year. Like when that year of business didn't actually look all that different on the back end of like me and how I was showing up and like what I was doing, which was essentially just like showing up and writing things and saying things and then telling people how to pay me for it. Like that all looked pretty much the same. Now, did I have a fancy graphic designer to make me really pretty graphics? Absolutely. Did I have somebody who I was able to like get to like put all of the things I was writing onto like a very pretty sales page instead of a Google Doc? Absolutely. But like, it was still the same thing of like me just making a decision about like what was the next thing to do and then taking action. And sometimes I got it right and I had $100,000 sales month, and like then sometimes I would get it wrong and I had a launch that completely bombed and I got literally 0 signups for it in the middle of a $300,000 year, mind you. So like shit happens, right? Because like sometimes I made really good calls and like sometimes I made not the best calls, and like sometimes things worked really well and sometimes they didn't work, but I learned from it all and I just didn't let it stop me. I didn't let it mean anything. I just kept going and said, okay, well, what's the next thing? I did a month-long launch on a program that sold 0 fucking spots. And I closed the card on that on Sunday, and I played it all the way through to the end of the launch. And I closed that card on Sunday night. And I said, okay, well, that really fucking sucked. And I feel really disappointed in that. And I let myself have that for a minute. And then I said, okay, so what's next? And I woke up on Monday morning. I wrote a fucking email. I sent it out to my list for a brand new program. And I sold 5 spots in the first 24 hours because I didn't let that failed launch spiral me into a place of inaction and like, oh, I don't know how to do this anymore. Or now I don't feel clear. Sorry, I'm getting really hot and I've got very fuzzy socks on that are making me getting worked up here. Because I just feel so incredibly passionate and adamant that like no matter what in your business, like don't stop moving. And when you have that momentum in your business of where like you're just always like you're always in action. And again, mind you, I'm the CEO of the 10-hour work week, you guys. So like always being in action in your business doesn't mean you have to be doing things all of the time. You can be working, as little as, depending on where you're at in your business, you can be working for 20 to 30 minutes a day, doing the thing, like the correct things to move the needle in your business, making the correct decisions and the correct actions that are what your business needs to keep moving forward. Right. And so it doesn't have to be that you're doing that, like being in constant motion in your business means that you're doing things all of the time or that you're hustling or any of these things. It just has to mean that like you're always being intentional. You're always energetically engaged with what you're doing. You're always looking to what's coming next and like where you're trying to go and what you desire from your business and what your people desire from you. And so always being energetically engaged is kind of what it's really about. And then making the decisions and taking the actions that follow that are called for me, the kind of bare minimum is always like, you get on the internet, say the things, tell the people how they can like jump into the conversation with you, whether that's directing them to a Facebook group or asking them a question or telling them that you have a podcast or telling them how they can learn more about your next program or asking them to DM you, right? Like whatever it is, it's like, you just have to like show up and say the things and tell the people who you are and what you're doing and why you give a shit about anything. And then asking them if they want to give a shit with you and then telling them where and how they can do that. Like, that's really it. And like, if you do that, like that's one of the biggest actions that is going to move you in your business, because that's going to start to give you clarity. That's going to be one thing that starts to give you those data points that I've been talking about to help you figure out, do I like talking about this? Do I like being engaged? Was it easy for me to talk about that? Did that feel really difficult to talk about? Do people respond to this? Do people not respond to this? Is this something I want to create something around? Is this not, right? And really just always being willing to show up for yourself and not giving up on yourself. And even if things are not going the way you wanted them to, or the way you thought they would, or any of those things, not just always retreating into that inaction, shutting it down, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. And one thing that I teach my clients to do kind of like in all contexts is figure out, and this kind of like goes back to like the way I approached my coach and asked her for like a layaway on one of her $100,000 spots, was like, how can you make what you desire work for you here and now? If you have a desire for something, how can you figure out how to get it for yourself in a way that makes sense for you here and now? And so if you want to, I wrote a post about this the other day, and the example that I used was like, if you desire to have a personal chef, you wouldn't not eat until you can have the personal chef. Would you? Probably not. You wouldn't stop eating because you can't have a personal chef, and your dream is to have a personal chef. And so if you can't have that, you just won't eat it all. But that's how we treat so much in life, right? We want a personal trainer, but like we aren't willing to do workouts until we can get there. Or, you know, we want to hire a coach, but because we can't join that mastermind or that one program, we just don't hire them at all. We want to sell a certain number of people into our programs or whatever. But like, if that doesn't look like it's happening, then we shut the launch down and we're just not going to sell it at all, or we're not going to sell anything at all. Right. And so we can really kind of go into this all or nothing mentality that doesn't really serve us. And so I really encourage people to figure out the way that it can work for them. If you have your eye on somebody who you want to be your mentor, like find a way. Come up with creative solutions. What would feel like a good way to step into that? Is it just giving them coffee money and a thank you? Is it joining one of their lower end programs? Is it asking for layaway or profit share or something like that? If you desire to sell out launches, like, can you just be committed to showing up for the launch, like yourself fully and completely, even if the other people don't show up? Even if the people aren't showing up, like, can you be committed to showing up? And if you're not energetically fully committed to showing up for the launch or the program, like, how are you expecting other people to show up? And do we not think that like they can feel on the other end, like the tentativeness of our own energy as we sell? And so always looking for that way of like, how can I make this happen? If you desire something in your business, what's the way that you can show up for that in the height of your current ability, given on your circumstances, to allow yourself to have that here and now? And when you start taking action from that place of like, this is my desire, maybe I can't get there yet, but this is what I can do from where I am right now to help move me closer to that, to help show my devotion and commitment to that desire. When you start moving and deciding and taking action from that place, your entire life and business will change, because you are operating from a place of commitment, decision, belief, faith, trust, and action. And that is like manifestation in movement. That is what is going to get you where you want to go, to call the things in, is that commitment to your desires, to allowing yourself to feel into the energy of those desires in ways that make sense for you here and now, so you can start to be in the energy and be in the frequency and taking the action towards getting there. And so don't just sit around and think about how you want it. Don't just sit around and desire it and like cry about how you don't have it. Like, if you need to do those things, like, that's fine. You can cry, you can grieve, you can throw a temper tantrum, you can be upset. God knows I do all of these things. But then you take a deep breath and you ask yourself, like, what's the next decision and what's the next action and how can I go and do it? And don't let yourself sit in the inaction. Don't let yourself move into a place of inertia, where then it takes so much more effort to get you back into motion and back into action. And if you do that, things are going to start to feel easier, because even the work, like when I first started, like writing consistent content felt really, really difficult, but now it's just a thing I do. Doing mindset work felt really difficult. Now it's just a thing I do. Investing in myself felt like a huge edge for me, but now it's just a thing I do. Right? And so even though I'm playing with my edges and I'm doing it on bigger and bigger in scales, even really stretching myself up into new places and into just discomfort of asking for what I wanted, like that, the act in and of itself, right? We can always find our edges of how to stretch ourselves, but at a certain point, like when you just keep doing the things, when you just keep taking the action, when you just keep writing or selling or going live or whatever. Like this right now, this is my second free, like Facebook training of the year. And like, it's like, oh yeah, I have to do that. But like come June, like Tuesday live trainings is just going to be the thing I do. And I'm like, not even going to think about it. It's going to be just like, that's who I am. That's what we do. And so that's kind of what you want to get to in your business is we write, we sell, we create, we decide, we move. We're always doing something, even if the doing something is resting, taking a break, taking time off, delegating, right? There's definitely ways that we can be doing things and being in action that don't actually require us to be doing action, but that doesn't mean nothing's going on energetically. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm just going to skip through the comments here really quick and see. Calling you out. Sorry, not sorry. I feel scary to keep talking about one-on-ones with no one buying, but I persist. Yes, keep going. Don't stop. The lack of clarity on details, which may be lack of trust that the details will drop when they need to drop. Yeah. Could be, and also could just be like your subconscious like lying to yourself, telling you that you don't know the details. And like maybe you just need to decide and start doing things. And then maybe you'll decide that you chose the wrong things and you need to change. But like most of the decisions we're making, particularly in business, are like not life or death. So like if you decide you changed your mind, then cool, you changed your mind. Nobody's gonna die. Profit share is such a fun way to do business. I'm totally here for the conversation with the right people. Thank you for the bang compliments. I love them. All right, everybody looks good. So have an amazing rest of your day. I hope everything was helpful today, and I will see you back here next Tuesday for our live. Don't forget tomorrow's Promo Wednesday. So share your shit and tell us how we can dip into your magic. Love you. Have a great rest of your day.